So yeah, like I would love to have like a little bit of a chat today to talk with you about obviously conversion optimization, what you and your team are specializing in, as well as like some common mistake tips and tricks and so on. So I would love to dig deep into that one. But first of all, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with Live 270. We've actually been in performance marketing and advertising industry for about 10 years now. We don't run ads. We actually are the support leg for advertising agencies and also DTC brands. So we do everything from web development, design, also creatives, just really whatever tasks need to happen to get it done, right? So CRO, etc.
Yeah. Awesome. So how long have you been with your business?
So my business partner, Corey, actually started this business about 10 years ago. I joined in with him just a couple of years back. So it's been a really interesting journey. I've known Corey for probably 20 years now. So I've known him for most of my life. He's been always trying to get me to come on board with him, and finally did. And we've grown exponentially since then. So it's been a fun ride.
Awesome.
So it's a lot of learning, right? Operations is always a blast because as you grow, more processes.
Absolutely. It's just like the problems don't go away. It's just like a different level of problems that you're facing when you like grow. But yeah, that's at least it keeps it interesting. So we connected a few months or weeks ago through Facebook through a common friend, Michael. And obviously with that, like with e-commerce advertising especially, there's often the issue that the ads are working well. People are coming to the websites. People are like interested in like what we're talking about in terms of like advertise like the ad itself and the offer. But then as soon as they're coming to the website, often the issue is that they're actually not converting, and we're like, what the hell? So yeah, like often I need someone like you or your team and just like fixes, because we know like the offer is interesting. People are actually interested in like what we're talking about and like what we're selling, but it's just not converting. So what do you think, or what do you feel like is the biggest issue when it comes to like websites that are not converting?
Yeah, I'd say it's actually a couple different things. The first one is going to be the customer psychology. So a lot of people, whenever you're starting out, you're more centered around, hey, how can I make this landing page look good? How can I actually make it, am I doing the right copy? What am I, I need to try to make something that's going to be as converting as possible. The biggest truth behind it is no one really knows what the best way to make a landing page is. How is it going to convert the best? Because if so, there'd be, trillionaires in the world because you know how to print money, right? So it actually comes down to testing and making sure that you're constantly testing and improving on your speed. So if you're constantly multivariate testing, you're going to be able to see what is the data coming in. What is the data actually going to tell you? A lot of brands make the mistake of ignoring the data, and it's okay to a degree, but it's not. So we come from the performance marketing industry where it's more on the lead generation side. That's where we first started in this industry. So no one is, all excited about auto insurance leads or solar leads, mass tort leads, etc. No one is like, hey, I love selling this product, right? So what do? You actually just rely straight on data. So whenever we was working with these brands, the analytics is the only thing that matters, right? Whenever we started working with direct-to-consumer brands, it's very interesting because there's a little bit of a shift. Those direct-to-consumer brands are really bought in with their brand, and that's like their baby, right? So it's easier for them to ignore the analytics for something that they think is more what in their mind it should look like. Does that make sense? So that's one of the biggest things I always have to suggest people: step away and let the data run. We've worked with DTC brands in the past that would choose a lower converting lander over a high converting lander just because they think it looks better. And I'm sure that you've actually experienced that. So what we try to do is tying that in, think about like brick and mortar retail, and you go into a shop, you go into that shop and no one talks to you, right? You walk in, it's a beautiful store, someone's behind the counter and you're browsing. Your chances of purchasing are probably pretty low, right? Because you don't understand the product, you don't understand the brand, you've never heard of the store before. But we've all went into a store before where someone's actually talking to you, hey, this is who we're about, this is what we've got going on, et cetera, and you're a little bit more likely to make a purchase. So driving your traffic into more of a sales lander approach will actually increase your conversion rates, because you're actually able to hold the hand of the customer and kind of guide them through that journey a little bit better, right? So with landing pages, we typically like to have two different approaches. The first approach is actually going to be, how can I teach you about my brand and who we are, right? So these are the problems that we're trying to solve. This is who I am as a brand, or even a founder of a brand, et cetera. That person's actually like in their passenger seat of their car, they're on their sofa, et cetera, scrolling down Facebook, seeing what their neighbor cooked for dinner last night. I mean, these people are not shopping for your product. They saw an ad that was engaging, they clicked on it. So what happens after that is you do not have much time to be able to get someone to the checkout and teach them about your brand, so your retargeting ads are going to be effective. So within that landing page, it's really important to be brand focused and talk about what the problem is. So that way, if they don't make that impulse buying decision, because it is an impulse buying decision. If it's the first time I've ever heard of you, I wasn't shopping for your product, I just clicked on an ad, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So that way, whenever it's retargeted, I'm like, hey, that's that product that I was thinking about all week. I couldn't remember what the website was because I clicked on an ad, but there it is. I'm ready to purchase now. Then the other side is, how can I have a really strong offer where I can actually make that conversion happen quickly? So it's really important to make sure that both of those things on a landing page are, conveyed through. So don't skip out on your branding, don't skip out on your offer, but utilize that to be able to build a larger customer base. But a lot of the times, whenever you're retargeting, you're able to actually drive them straight to their Shopify store or their storefront, because they now understand a little bit more about you. You can let them go. They don't need as much hand holding, right? So they can add things to cart, et cetera, because it's no longer an impulse buying decision at that point. But that first time customer is really important to try to get them into a more of a hand holding environment if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned before, like the power of testing, so many times when I talk with clients and they're like, well, we know exactly how our clients tick. We know exactly what they want and what they want to see. And they're like, as you mentioned, that's their baby. They have such a strong relationship with the branding and like what they want to pursue and want to display. They often really don't see exactly what they actually should show. So that's why the power of testing in terms of advertising is also like so massive, where we have at least like a few different creatives, a few different angles, a few different perspectives running at the same time, where we can see exactly, okay, what actually works, what doesn't work. And so many times clients come back of like, well, I didn't expect that. Exactly, because you need to test. You don't 100% know the people that are always purchasing. And there are so many different avatars or like niches in the avatar, which you might not consider. So definitely on the advertising side of things as well. In terms of like the landing pages that you mentioned before, like the testing side of things, how long do you think in terms of the landing pages should they run in order to have enough data to actually say, okay, that worked, it didn't work, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's a question that we're always testing on our side as well, because it's almost like, you take a coin and you flip it 10 times, it might, land on one side 7 times and 3 times the other. But after you do it for 1,000 times, it's going to get closer and closer to 50%. So whenever you launch these multivariant testing campaigns, it's really common that you're like, hey, this is crushing it. This is going way better than I expected. Always give it time, because you need to make sure that you get enough data to always go through the entire side of it. I wouldn't personally shut off any campaigns until it's at least had 10,000 visitors, because that's going to give you a little bit more of an approach. But some of them will even run longer than that, just depending on how close the data really is and what it means. So a larger brand is going to be a lot more important to be able to increase your conversion rate, right? So if you're a 7-figure a month brand, a 0.03 conversion rate could mean, $30,000 a month extra in revenue or plus. So yeah, those are going to take a little bit more testing to make sure that it is where it is. But for the brands that are really just starting out, don't make too many changes. Launch something, and you can only make 1 or 2 changes on a page whenever you're testing, because you don't know what's working and not. You can raise your conversion rate by 1%. You don't know if changing the customer testimonial section actually dropped it 0.5%. So don't try to do too many things at once, but as long as you've got your customer journey there in the beginning, you're going to be a lot further ahead than a lot of people are. And just let the ads kind of really dial in. So it just depends on where you are as a whole, if that makes sense. So
okay. And when you mentioned like don't change too many things at the same time, obviously don't have like too many variables where you don't know like what exactly is the thing that actually makes a change. But like when you're testing one thing, you mentioned like the 10K visitors before of like having that as a sweet spot before you actually make a decision. But like obviously a lot of brands that I'm working with, or like other agencies, they don't have the capacity to run it until like 10K. Is there anything else where you say, okay, cool, we don't need to wait until 10K of visitors, we can make a change now, we know like that works, that doesn't?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always make different variations of your landing page and be able to split up your traffic between those different variations, right? If I make option A, I can clone it into option B and option C and make one change on each. And then that way you can actually test more things at once. Without the amount of traffic, it's going to be really hard to obviously gauge where that coin lands, right? But that is a great question. But 10,000 visitors might sound like a lot, but that could mean 30 days or 60 days for some people. But what we have found is that the difference between a brand scaling fast and a brand that's not scaling as fast is typically going to be your ad spend for the most part. I'm sure that you would agree with that.
Yes.
Whenever we work with, So whenever we work with a brand, we always tell people, if your ad budget this month is $10,000, then you're going to get $10,000 worth of results, right? If your ad budget is $20,000 this month, you're just going to get to those higher results faster, because there's no difference to us between 60 days, 20,000 or 30 days, 20,000, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be really important, obviously, depending on where you are as a brand, not to overscale too quickly, because you don't want your fulfillment to go crazy and everything to kind of break. And also, it's really difficult to start stepping out of your comfort zone and start accepting those larger ad budgets. But you just have to give it time. You can't rush the process. That's our biggest thing that we have to tell people. We've worked with smaller brands before that were running a campaign for 90 days. And they're like, man, it's been 90 days. It's like, yeah, but that's where your brand is right now. It's fine, right? So we relate brands. There's a life cycle of a brand, just like there's life cycles of people. That new brand is an infant. It needs a lot of attention. It's crying. You got to watch it. But as it gets older, hopefully you can let it go and do its own thing for a little bit, right? Hey, you're 16. You can stay at the house by yourself. I can finally go on vacation and maybe answer 10 emails. Instead of being right in on it. So in that beginning stage, don't rush that time with your brand, because it's going to be really important as you scale, because you got to get profitable in the beginning, because you're going to start, paying for 3PLs that you didn't expect to. You're going to be paying for more creative agencies you didn't expect to, and et cetera. So getting into the profitability sector, whether it takes you 6 months or 1 month, depending on where your budget is, just don't give up on it and keep focusing on it. There's not many brands that we've worked with that can't scale to at least 6 figures a month in revenue. That's not too difficult. The only thing that holds you back is your product and funds, right? So if you're spending $1,000 a month in ad spend or 10,000, doesn't matter. Just make sure you keep reinvesting in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the same, very, very similar to like when it comes to advertising, where like people, especially the smaller businesses that like maybe haven't invested that heavily before into like advertising, they're expecting the returns right away, because obviously it's a scary decision for many businesses to invest the first time bigger sums when it comes to online advertising. And they often ask me for like, the most common question is probably like the guarantee. Is the guarantee it's going to work? Which obviously I don't own Facebook, unfortunately. It would be much more fun.
Hey, I call you all professional poker players, because like if I walked into a casino, I'd be $1,000 down before I walked in, right? That's why we don't do media buying. You guys are the ones that can sit at the table, and you know how to play the game, and that's awesome. I completely understand that. Yeah.
But like another point of it as well is that it takes time. It takes time in terms of actually testing and learning of like, who is your target audience? Who is actually the person that actually wants to convert? And how long does it take for that person to make a decision? Because so many people are different when it comes to the journey, and it's really, really difficult. It comes down to testing. So when new people come on board, we usually say 3 months is the minimum that we would recommend, because it takes a little bit, at least for us as a team to learn, as well as like for the Facebook algorithm to learn, for the pixel to learn, to actually make them the changes on the website as well. So yeah, it's just an overall project, and not just like a quick fix.
No, not at all. And obviously iOS 14 made it where the tracking's a little bit harder, right?
A little bit harder, yes, that's nicely put.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of iOS 14, did you like have, obviously it impacts you as well in terms of like the traffic coming through, as well as like trackability and stuff. But is it anything that did you see that you had to adjust from your side?
Yeah, we've actually been using the Facebook conversion API for a couple of years now. So we were utilizing that before it was public. So we're pretty familiar with it.
It was cool.
Yeah, before it was the new cool thing. Like, I remember waking up one morning and everyone's just talking about, I need help with conversion API. And I was like, what happened? I remember when no one really talked about this. But the whole concept behind it is that your browser has a browser side pixel that is through JavaScript, right? So your browser processes that and actually sends it to Facebook saying, hey, Jacob is the one that landed on this page. Jacob actually is the one that made this purchase. This product is really good for people like him, so I'm going to show other people like him that item, right? But the problem with the conversion API is still, hey, there was a purchase made through this campaign, but I don't know who made it, right? Because you're still not getting that track back to that individual. Yes, you can do like offline conversions and you can track some of that back, but it's still not going to be as good as before. What we found is most of the time, your ads, like most people's ads, are fatiguing faster because of this. So one of the biggest things that people are actually doing, and what we're helping our brands with to be able to combat that, is being able to supply more creatives to actually refresh those campaigns. Because if you're not refreshing on that side, then your ads are going to fatigue, and then you'll be kind of in a stuck position. So we're trying to make sure that we have enough for each campaign to actually have ad creatives to be able to refresh in about every 3 weeks. I mean, yes, there's some campaigns that the teams that we work with have been running for years and it's still going good. That's kind of the top 10% of what's really going on. But it's a different landscape now. We're all going to adjust. You just can't keep doing it the way that you used to.
Absolutely. Like, as you mentioned before, like fatigue is happening quicker because the audience size is just smaller, and it's just like less learning to work with. So yeah, the audience is definitely, like, the imagery and creatives, and just keeping it like fresh and new is definitely a big point. I think you mentioned like a few days ago that you and your agency, like, obviously you approach now like the creative side of things, and you just want to make it bigger and better, and just give your clients a better option for that side of things as well, which I think makes definitely sense, because you're so deep into the creative and the branding anyway with your creating and designing the landing pages and so on. So it just makes sense to offer that one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but there's not many like creative agencies that understand like how to make the imagery for your website, for your landing page, and etc. So like I said, the first like probably 6 years of our business, we actually were more of a boutique agency, servicing only agencies that are doing more than $1 million a month in ad spend for the most part. So obviously in that type of scenario, we are a division of many other divisions that are all working together. And then what we found whenever we're starting to open our doors to smaller brands is we have the web design talent, obviously, we have the web development talent, but if you don't have the assets needed to make a good looking landing page, there's no amount of web design that can really help you. And there's so many other creative agencies out there right now, but they're more on the high end side of pricing, right? Oh, I'm going to pay $7,500 for 2 videos and 20 images. Those are great on the creative side, but what about your social feed, and what about your website? How are we really going to be, focusing on that? So to be able to service these brands that we've actually opened our doors to, we found really quickly we needed to create a creative department. So we've been actually opening that for some time now, and we're actually going to be opening that up to the public on July 1st. So it's going to be really exciting for us.
Awesome, perfect. So if people want to get in touch with you, or people like obviously like a lot of people have an issue with conversion optimization, or want to like get better at it, how do people reach out to you, or like who should actually reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone was ever needed to reach out to us, all they have to do is go to our website, live370.com. Pretty soon it's actually going to be changed into more of a Shopify store where you can actually buy different services, because we believe that it should be really easy to figure out what's going on. So some things obviously will require a book call to talk about it beforehand to get proper scoping of work. But we've been doing this for quite some time, and there's not a huge reason for some things to hop on a call to discuss. Like if you need a landing page, just purchase the landing page. We'll get on a call, on an onboarding call, and get started at this point. So there's a lot of different things that we're changing up, but it's going to be great.
Awesome, perfect. I'm definitely looking forward to our first project together, because I'm so keen to get like the ABC testing with different variables going. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we didn't cover? Obviously, it's such a massive topic in itself, but is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a huge topic. So yeah, there's a couple different things. So Google Optimize is a great tool to actually utilize. I'm sure you know that as well. It's one of the free ones. So if you have not actually spent some time into that, I would highly suggest starting with that to be able to start your testing. So there's going to be a couple different types of testing. There's going to be, asset testing, where you're split testing different landing pages. Don't focus on that in the beginning. Try to get one thing so that way you can really focus on it. I'm sure that we've all tried to do too many things at once, and it just turns out bad. It's very similar to this situation. Make one landing page, launch it live, but go ahead right off in the beginning. Change your CTA button to a different color. Change or do something to be able to test on that side. There's a couple different things on the Shopify side that we've actually seen to start increasing conversions as well. So if you'd like me to share some of those, I can as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing is actually showing your estimated shipping times on your product pages. So underneath your add to cart button, if you add in a script that says order now and receive this in between, June 29th and July 3rd, you can add those scripts there where it'll automatically just calculate out a couple days ahead. You know what your average shipping times are. Give them a range, but we're all conditioned to the Amazon experience now. So what happens is you see it. I don't know about you, but here I'm looking down and I'm not looking at the prices. I'm looking at when can I get this item? Like, oh, this one's on Monday. This one's on Tuesday. I'll pay the $10 extra to go ahead and get it faster, right? So it's going to be very similar now with the DTC side. Is you see these pages and you might even like the product, but one thing that could be holding someone back is, when would I even get this? Because you want instant gratification. If I saw, hey, I'm going to get this next week, let's go ahead and order. And your customer service side is going to appreciate that as well. Because they're not going to get 1,000 emails right after they order. When am I going to get my product?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, classic.
So we've done that actually on quite a few clients now, and we're seeing drastic increases in conversion. Obviously, Afterpay is going to be a huge one. Do you all have a version of that in Australia?
Afterpay, yes.
Oh, okay, cool. I know our UK clients have to use something a little bit different, possibly. But that's like the new age credit card. So if you have a $10 item or a $100 item, lots of people are using it because they're familiar to it and they can just add it to their current Afterpay payments that are coming out of their account. And then I would say the next thing that is going to be huge is your slide out cart. So if you have a cart page currently, go ahead and move away from having an actual cart page. Every time that someone has to go through another point of clicking buttons and reading, it's another time for them to bounce out, right? There's actually a couple really good apps that are out that if your theme does not have a current slide out cart, you can actually just install a app and it will take care of that for you at this time. But I would definitely try that out as soon as possible. And then if you're not doing post-purchase upsells, you have to do that immediately. So post-purchase upsells are huge. Find an offer. If you're a one product store or a two product store, still do post-purchase upsells and try to sell them another one, or find another product that you can cross-sell to. Get a lot more aggressive on the promotions on those, because remember, this is just extra added income. So you're not recouping your ad costs on that side. You're not, if you're taking a 20% profit on those post-purchase upsells, it's just extra money that you didn't expect before, right? So play with those numbers, because the whole game between conversion rates and average order values is like a balance beam. You know, your average order value goes up, your conversion rate starts to go down, and you're always playing that game, trying to make it go back and forth all the way up the ladder. So try those out. So that, I would say that would be some things that is really easy to implement that you can do on your store right away, that can probably increase your conversion rates. Those are kind of some best practices there.
They're really, really good. Thank you very much for sharing that. Especially like the shipping time and shipping date. Yeah, such a simple, small thing that you would like not even think about, but it makes such a big difference if you can see it in front of you. Like, cool, next week Monday it's gonna be here. It's amazing. Yeah. It's really, really cool. And like also like the average order value and the power of that, especially when it's linked to online advertising again. Like the higher average order value, obviously the more you're able to invest upfront, it makes advertising just so much easier. Like just simpler and better. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The higher average order value is, obviously the faster you can scale your ads. So start building out bundles, start trying to figure out a way for post-purchase upsells. Pre-purchase upsells is always something that you have to test, because they can also lower your conversion rate as well. Yeah. So just be really careful with those. So what we find is on pre-purchase upsells, try to find an offer that's, $10 or $20 or, maybe 25% of what your normal average order value would be. Because if you make it too big, whenever they hit that checkout page, they'll see that larger number, and then that's a really big back away point. On your post-purchase upsells, you can do whatever you want, right? Like if they say, hey, this is too much, and they just exit out, the transaction's already done.
Okay, awesome. Just like out of curiosity for me, like what is a good post-purchase upsell app potentially on Shopify, or would you like have the custom made?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Zipify OCU is probably one of our favorites. CartHook is another one. What we found was Zipify OCU that CartHook does not do is that on Zipify, you're actually able to make custom flows based off of products. CartHook, you can do that, but on Zipify, it's a little bit more customizable on the flows, because you can say, if this one item is in this entire list of items that they're purchasing, don't show it as a post-purchase upsell and things of that nature. And it's fairly inexpensive. I believe that's like $30 a month and like 1% of revenue, or, everyone's trying to take your percentages of your revenue in this game. So it's inexpensive and you can get it going. There's not many apps that you really need to be paying for in the beginning. Just stick with Klaviyo and a post-purchase upsell. If you're just getting started, then, use Shogun for your page builder to try to use a template to make you a landing page that you can get started with right away. If you're doing if you want to do a landing page as well, and you don't want to go into the more custom route because you're a smaller brand, utilize something like Unbounce or something of that nature, because they have a great built-in split testing features. And then what you're going to want to do is, instead of an add to cart button, you're going to use what's called a permalink, right? So whenever you click that link, it's actually going to just go straight to the checkout with that item in there. All you have to do is Google Shopify permalink. It'll show you how to build one. It's not difficult. But that way you can actually test different things rather quickly, obviously. Some of those brands that we've worked with, for example, like Snow Teeth Whitening, a lot of they didn't actually start focusing on their actual website for quite some time. Like almost all of their sales was done through a landing page, right? The storefront was just there in the background. Sorry, my allergies are killing me here at this time of the year. But so they're driving all this traffic to actually just a landing page because obviously they're able to test, but your conversion rates are typically going to be higher in that type of environment as well. Your page speeds are going to be higher. As we know, if your Shopify store or your storefront is loading more than 9 seconds, you need to figure something out right away. So go to gtmetrics.com, put in your URL, see where it's at. Because most of our users are mobile, and what happens whenever you're a mobile user, you're not all the time you're on Wi-Fi. But I know that if I'm sitting there clicking through a website and it's still taking 9 seconds to load in between pages or a couple of pages, you're going to get frustrated and leave.
Yeah.
You're gone. So we typically like to see our stores under 4%. I believe it's for every second of load speed, it could be a 7% increase in conversions. So whenever I say 7% increase, it's not 7% conversion rate. It's like if your conversion rate is 3%, then that would be a 7% of that, right? So it'd be 3.21 or whatever that might be.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, so much goodness. I'm definitely like after this call, I'm gonna jump straight on like another call with my clients just to make sure like they have all of them like especially the post-purchase upsells on, because that's gonna just make a big difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's going to be huge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob, for like taking the time, giving us a little bit of an insight of like conversion optimization, as well as like insight of like what you and your guys are doing in helping like other businesses grow and like scale massively. So that's really, really cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank